I came up with a very highly professional presentation to share with all you guys regarding having opinions in our modern day world. Because if any of you have seen this goofball named McDick that goes online, he's obviously got an opinion most of the time and like sharing it with people. And with the new world we live in with social media and everything, there's opinions out there, and we need to talk a little bit about them. So, Robert, if you want to kick her in the butt here, let's just get going, and I'm going to try and keep up with your clicks here. Now, remember.
Here we go.
All right.
You see that now?
I can see it. You betcha. If everyone else can see it, we'll just keep rocking. And I've got the chat box open here too. So if anybody's got any questions along the way, let me know. So just hit the present button up on the top right. And yeah, and I'll have at her with you here, man. Okay, so having an opinion, it's not what it used to be. A highly professional and interactive presentation by McDick, of course, right? So you can go ahead and click on the next one there, Robert. All right, so having an opinion. What we will be accomplishing during this highly electric presentation will be obviously the definition of an opinion, what it is. Where are opinions? As in, where do we find opinions? And lastly, we will of course look at exchanging opinions and when should we not, and how should we exchange opinions. So next, please, Robert. Actually, Robert, if you could just follow me everywhere, I'd love an assistant to handle all this stuff. I feel like I can hand talk a lot better now that I'm not clicking on everything here. Okay, during this presentation, there will be absolutely no questions. I will tolerate zero talking, and this is a very serious presentation that I'm doing. A little sticky note there saying, obviously, don't forget the seriousness of this presentation. It is very highly serious, okay? And you can see I like to incorporate some duct tape in my presentations along with everyday operations on the agricultural side of things too. So next, please, Robert. All right, so what is an opinion? An opinion is a view or judgment about something. Now, an opinion doesn't have to necessarily be based on fact or knowledge, okay? Next, please, Robert. Example of an opinion is a better picture should have been used in the background of this slide. And I mean, that would be someone's opinion. It might be, I don't think it's a very good opinion, but it might be someone's opinion. That guy really needs to trim his beard. Okay, well, I mean, that would obviously be someone's opinion. I don't think that I need to trim my beard. It's not my opinion because I don't have enough stuff that falls from my mustache down into the beard yet. And that's when I decide to trim my beard. Are there even airlines hooked up to that trailer? Okay, that's actually a question. It's not an opinion at all whatsoever. First of all, please do not look closely because there are not. And second of all, I said there was no questions during this presentation. So please go on to the next slide, Robert. Okay, so obviously in slideshows, you should have some sort of fun fact, which I like to put in a lot of my videos. So here's a fun fact about opinions. Go ahead, Robert. Opinions are like our hind ends. Everyone has one, and most of them stink. Okay, so that's a fun fact about opinions. All right, so having an opinion, if you click once there, Robert, there's going to be a fancy check mark flying in there, and we're going to see that we have accomplished phase one of this presentation. We have defined what an opinion is. Next slide, please, Robert. So now we're going to go into where we find opinions. A click for me, please, sir. All right, opinions are found at the following places: the elevator, parts store, hardware store, dropping off cattle at the auction ring, grocery store, phone conversations, kitchen table, seed cleaning plant, implement dealership, and let us not forget the most important place we find opinions in all small towns across Canada. Give me a click, Robert. Coffee Row, which you guys are a little bit too young for that right now, but your parents probably take all of their opinions to Coffee Row is where we find them. Probably grandparents do it too. And if you go to Coffee Row, make sure to take your opinions there with you as well. Next slide, please, Robert. All right, so where else do we find opinions? Now we're going to get into the meat of this presentation. One more for me, please, sir. Oh, social media, which is just taking our world by storm everywhere. And this is actually where I'm going to talk serious with all you folks here just for a few minutes. So if you can hit me one more there time, please, Robert. Oh, sorry. Yes, obviously, where we find opinions, we've looked after. Fancy green check mark slides in over the side. Is anybody impressed with my presentation yet? This took me like 8 hours. I got some thumbs up. All right. Oh, thanks, guys. Okay. So exchanging opinions, and we're going to talk seriously here just for a second. If you can hold it there for me, Robert. When you have an opinion on something, it's very important that you have an informed opinion. Lots of people will listen to someone else's opinion and just side with them because it makes them feel good, or maybe they align with that and they kind of believe it, or they don't know where they stand on an opinion and they hear something that they like, or they see a big group getting a response to a certain opinion, so they'll side with that. It's not always the best thing to do. If you're going to form an opinion, it's always important to have some information to back it up. If you don't have the information to back an opinion up, it's easy to just tell somebody, I kind of don't have an opinion on that because I really don't know what we're talking about. Which, if we went back to a whole bunch of the slides that all the much smarter earlier presenters did, I couldn't have much of an opinion on any of it because I didn't know about a lot of it. Right? Next one, please, Robert. All right, try to see where someone's opinion might be coming from. So I find this a lot, and I don't know how you guys find it in your world, but I find things a lot where when I'm talking to somebody maybe that lives in a city or doesn't know what a farm is, or doesn't know where oil and gas comes from, or doesn't know where lumber comes from, it's very easy for them to have a different opinion on something that you're talking about than you have, right? Because a lot of us, let's say beef, for example, if someone in the city doesn't have a great opinion or a negative opinion about beef and how it's produced, you might have a different opinion on that for the simple fact that you're involved in it every day. You see the hard work that goes into it, and you see the sustainable side of it. Whereas someone in a city might just watch a documentary that knocks beef production. The two of you are probably going to have a different opinion. But when you go to back up your opinion or debate a person on your opinion, it's really important to understand where they're coming from, because our initial reaction as a human being, if we have somebody from a city tell us that beef's bad and it's killing the planet, which is something that we hear from a lot of people nowadays, right? If we hear that opinion from somebody else, your initial reaction is going to be upset because you're trying to defend it, because that's your industry, because that's what you are growing up in and you are proud of it. And this is what you do for work. But they might not understand how much work you put into it or the good side of beef. All they've ever had the opportunity to see is the bad side of it. And to them, they think getting beef is just going down to the grocery store and buying it off of the shelf, right? That's actually a 50-20. So yes, that is a nice tractor. Thank you for that. Sorry, I'm trying to keep an eye on the right-hand side here too. But it's really important when you go into a debate with somebody or have a conversation with somebody about their opinion, or if you want to talk about, let's keep using beef as an example, it's really important that you understand where their mindset is coming from, because it gives you the advantage to be patient with them, right? If I have a conversation with somebody that lives, say, downtown Toronto, that's never been outside of the city of Toronto, I'm going to have a different conversation with them versus another person that's been involved in the beef community for years and years, right? And this is when I mentioned social media and sharing opinions, this is something where we see exploding really fast on a lot of different social media platforms, which I hope a lot of you aren't on, because social media is not all it's cracked up to be. There's good sides to it, of course, so don't take that too far out of context. But it creates a better open dialogue if you can be the person that's proactive in saying, hey, okay, I see where your opinion might be coming from. And you might even ask them a few different questions to get yourself a little more on side with where their mindset is coming from. You can engage in a conversation with somebody a lot better, have an open conversation, calm, in person. We'll get to that in a second. A lot better if you put out to them that you're willing to understand and see their side of it as well, right? And hopefully they'll return that favor back to you. And when you start sharing opinions like that, it can actually get you some good traction, and you can make some ground with it, versus shutting yourself off and saying, I don't know where that opinion of yours came from, but it's garbage, and then getting into a fight with somebody, right? It just doesn't make sense. So always try to see where the other person is coming from with their opinion before you react to it. And just because somebody says something to you right away doesn't mean, boom, I got to hit something back with them real fast. You know what I mean? You just don't have to. You can always take some time to process what a person's saying, right? So next one, please, Robert. Find some sort of common ground, which I guess I kind of just talked about a little bit, but that's the best way when you're sharing opinions with somebody, having a conversation with them, is if you can find common ground with somebody. They might say something that you don't know about living downtown Toronto or downtown Regina or downtown Saskatoon, because you've never been there or spent a lot of time there. even if we look at, say COVID-19 restrictions, they're going to be a lot different for somebody that lives in an apartment downtown Regina than a person that lives out on a farm, right? Because we've obviously got a large part of the outdoors that we can go and be a part of without having to be confined to our apartment, right? So if you can find some kind of a common ground between yourself and that person, it's going to make your exchange of opinions go a lot better than if you don't try to find common ground at all and just dig your heels in the sand and stand your ground, right? One more for me, please, Robert. All right, in person versus online. So, I mean, by show of hands or whatever, I mean, I can see mostly on the side of my screen here. How many people prefer being in person versus being on Zoom? All right, yeah, I like seeing that. The neat thing, Faith, thank you very much. The neat thing about being in person is you can react to another person's body language when you're having a conversation with them. And a lot of times people can get quite brave when they're just behind a screen, or if I'm on Zoom. I mean, basically what I'm doing here right now is exactly what I would be doing in front of you in person. I would be talking lots with my hands and kind of rambling on a little bit, right? But if you get exchanging different comments, say on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or wherever it is you might find yourself, people can be a lot more brave, and people can be a lot more abrasive when they do it, simply because they're behind the security of a screen, which, in my opinion, and here's my opinion, can go two ways. Is number one, the person might say something that they would never say in person with you because that presents a physical challenge for them, right? Because if somebody wants to get, I guess I'm not sure the word I'm looking for is, if somebody wanted to get defensive with you in a physical manner, that would be something that could happen in a personal situation. Whereas when you're online, the person can't really come and grab a hold of you and be like, hey, I don't like what you're saying. You know what I mean? So in one sense, people might say something that they never would in person, but in the other sense, there's people that you engage with in person where they won't say something that they should say because they're afraid that there might be a physical confrontation. And that's not always a good thing either. You have to be mindful of physical confrontation, and that's why you always have to be tactful with how you're speaking with somebody. But you should never try and hide behind that, as long as you've come to your opinion in the ways that we've talked about, is that you have research knowledge to back it up, and that you've experienced it. You have gone to the other person and say, try and find common ground with them, and you've tried to see where they're coming from with their opinion. If you kind of follow those steps when you're sharing opinions with somebody, there's a really good chance that you're going to have a very good and positive interaction with them, even if you're talking about something that the two of you very, very much so disagree on, right? So people throw opinions around, and if you look back at the start of this presentation, I mean, I was being a goofball talking about opinions and all that stuff. Opinions are a serious thing, and sometimes it's maybe best to keep our opinions to ourselves. And I'm sure that's a situation that we all get into sometimes when you see one. My dad, Big Mustache Al, cannot keep his opinions to himself, especially when I'm the guy that's hooking the bucket onto the tractor and he's the guy that's telling me how to do it. He's got a very good opinion on how to do it, right? But there's a lot of different situations that we need to be careful in, right? So opinions are great, and they're great to have. Sometimes they stink. Sometimes we should keep them to ourselves. But if you follow a lot of this stuff, I've found in my life that I have much better interactions with people, and having positive interactions with people, not even that you necessarily agree with, is a very important thing, and it's a part of the fabric that holds our social lives together, right? So positivity is always better than negativity when it comes to opinions, if you can keep it that way. So one more slide for me, please, Robert. One more, please. Green check mark. I learned how to do that on the presentation thing, and I literally just kept going through it, getting the check marks to the slide, because I always got red X's when I was in school. So I could give myself green check marks on this one, and it was fantastic. One more for me, please, there, Robert. It's official. You have actually witnessed a presentation put together by a guy named Quick Dick McDick. Did you ever think that would happen in your life? Good. Me neither. I actually I didn't even know how to work this whole slide thing until this came up. So that's what I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and the floor is open for opinions on this presentation. No math questions, please, as I don't really do very well with them, and we'll go from there. What about opinions that are obviously unfounded, like opinions about agriculture, beef, or production? Unfounded is in how, Kajal?
Maybe misguided.
Yeah. Okay. So I would still suggest to try and use the same tactics that we talked about, is if they have a misguided opinion, or another way you could go about that is be like, that's an interesting opinion. Like, where would you have come up with something like that? And that might be either a good way to get the person to think about what they're saying. And, well, I saw it here, or I found it on Facebook, or I Googled how is beef bad for the earth. And you can say, let's use that. So how is beef bad for the earth? You could be like, well, where would you have found information like that? Well, I found it on Google. You could be like, well, in my experience and what we find, beef is not bad for the earth. And there's a lot of terrible algorithms on Google that can actually lead you to something called confirmation bias, which will take you to the information that you're looking for in order to keep you clicking on that information, which is when I say social media and the internet, although they're great things, sometimes they can lead you down a little bit of a wormhole that maybe you shouldn't be going down, because you're finding a lot of misinformation, right? So I guess that's one way you could go about it, but try your best not to get like confrontational with a person that has that opinion, because all it does is fuel their fire along with yours to be like, well, look, this is a person that's in beef and they think I'm a bad person. Man, I had to catch myself to not swear there. I'm glad that happened really good. So but try to keep your head, and that's the most important thing, I think, with people that have opinions like that, is that if you start losing your mind, it makes them feel like they're really gaining some traction with their part of the debate and that they're winning it, kind of thing. Keep a calm head, and if you get to the point where you can answer something, or if something's completely misguided to the point where you're like, oh buddy, you are so far gone here, there's just no helping you, can be like, hey, thanks for your opinion, and I disagree with it, but maybe we'll continue this conversation another time. It's not like you're losing a debate by walking away from somebody that you have noticed is way too far down the rabbit hole. But you can always try and get their, contact information, or be like, hey, I'd love to further this conversation and involve a few people that have the knowledge that might be able to bring this to your, to your attention of how that's not how things are, right? But I hope that answered your question. My professional opinion is those were some sweet slides. Well, thank you, Claire. I'm glad someone's a professional in the room here. What's your recommendation when facts do not form part of their opinion? I hope I kind of just answered a little bit of that. And that's one thing that you really find in modern day society is everybody's got all the facts behind them to back up their opinion. And a lot of the times when you start hearing facts that aren't true, I'd revert back to the answer to my last question is ask them where they got their opinion from, where they get their information from. And that's sometimes a really, really good opportunity to bring to people's attention, hey, social media, Facebook, Google doesn't always give you the right answer, right? Which is terrible, because I Google lots of stuff and depend on it to fix engines most of the time. So how do we find a balance of targeting producers as well as the general public in your videos? Or do you that's a good question. Target certain videos for a certain audience. Very much certain videos for certain audiences. And I think one of my bigger challenges with my videos has been they make their way to a lot of agricultural or oil field related, a lot of different places, but they don't make it to where they need to make it most of the time. And when I say where they need to make it, is a lot of what I was just speaking. When you get a lot of people that live in very urban areas, and I'm still toying around with how to not target. The target's maybe the wrong word to use, because I'm not doing this as a bad thing, but I just really want people to be able to see agricultural operations or oil and gas operations and just have a little bit of knowledge into what's all involved in it, because I'm sure a lot of you would agree that when you have somebody that just thinks beef comes from a store, you think to yourself, I really wish I could just get you to come out and spend a month with me and see what's involved in getting beef to your store, right? So I'm still working on it, but absolutely there'll be certain videos that I'm hoping certain people see. And like when I'll do a video on, say, on Bill C-71, C-21 with the gun bans and a few different things, it's kind of headed towards maybe a sport shooting, sport targeting genre of people. And then my favorite, when I do the little quicks ones, we just have a good time and just learn about stuff. And they're actually my favorite ones to do. Curious if you would have an estimate of what proportion of your social media following viewers are non-agriculturally involved. Do you also get serious questions in response to your primary comedic? Yeah. Oh man, that's a good question. It's hard to tell. There's lots of people will admit in a lot of the comments, they're like, I'll use an example as some people in California actually that had two little kids that started watching my little quick stuff. And I believe that they were in San Fran, if I'm not mistaken, and they didn't know anything about farming. And somehow, with the YouTube algorithm, my video popped up in their recommended videos, and they started watching. So every time I got a Little Quicks one now, I get a picture of them watching down in California, learning about oats or beef or something like that, which is really neat. And the second part of that question is there's a lot of people out there sometimes that don't have much of a sense of humor in stuff that I actually make jokes about. Maybe it'll be a little more serious, or I'll be making a joke about, the government, or maybe it'll be something a little on the inappropriate side that kind of is meant to go over a few people's heads, and I get people that get mad about that. The thing about comedy, and the primary focus of all of these videos is comedy, is just to get people laughing. It's just I try and find stuff to make people laugh about different things. And the funny thing about comedy is sometimes we just don't share the same sense of humor with other people. And trust me, I find that a lot. But I do find that I share the same sense of humor with a lot of people in my community. And that's kind of the genre of comedy that I target, is kind of the people that I know and what would make them laugh. And if other people start laughing at it, that's great. But at the same time, if people get serious at my comedy or at my jokes or whatever I do, and they get upset with me on it, I don't get upset at them for it. It's just they don't fit into my line of comedy, and that's okay, because everyone's just like opinions. Everyone can have a little bit different of a sense of humor, and that's fine. That's what makes us human. My opinions on opinions. Thank you. Has Google ruined the art of debate? I don't know if it has or it hasn't. I don't know if anyone's taken the time. There's a really neat documentary, and I don't usually pump the tires documentaries on Netflix, but there's one called The Social Dilemma, and if you haven't watched it, it's really worth watching. And it just goes through, what social media is doing to debate and a lot of things. And it's really good to watch, because like I said before, algorithms will take you where you want to go, because the goal of any social media platform is to just keep you clicking and clicking and clicking and keep your screen open. That's what they're there to do, because they have companies that pay them to advertise, and they want their advertisements to get in front of you, and that's how social media works. So I would recommend to watch The Social Dilemma, and just let that sink in a little bit. If you haven't seen it, it's really great, and it would really be a better answer to that question than what I can answer. Would it be helpful if we would all share content? I cannot. It's Bryn. I cannot stress enough for absolutely everybody involved in agriculture, whether you're in agriculture, whether you're in dance, whether you're in sports, no matter what it is you do, try and share what it is that you do. I mean, some people catch, a larger crowd. I accidentally caught a big following. I didn't mean for any of it to happen. It just kind of happened. But the more we share about what we do, especially, if we're skilled trades, or if we're in agriculture, or a bunch of different things, people that don't know how this stuff works, if they stumble upon it and watch one 30-second clip of you doing something that they've never seen before, that might be all it takes for them to be like, I had no idea that that's how a calf was born, and it's stuff that we take for granted because we see it every day, but other people have never seen it before in their lives. So the more people that share what you do, I think the better. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to see you eating your steak every night and that you've cooked it to perfect medium rare and everything. I get sick of food posts pretty fast, but do what you can to share what you do, and you should share what you do, because you should be proud of it, right? That was a great question. I think I lost where I was at here. Our favorite video is you, the beginning and ending of calving. Thank you, Chelsea. That was a filter that I found. I feel that old most of the time. And yeah, if somebody's got the link to that, I don't really know how to share it. It's on my Facebook page, I think, if people follow me there. What was the biggest video that made your channel take off? Oh boy, Rowan, that was protesters' diets. And it was one where I kind of make fun of the hypocrisy of environmentalists that protest that you need to switch to a vegan diet to combat climate change. Which, I mean, there's a lot of holes in that theory. Obviously, everyone that's involved in beef knows about carbon sequestration and secondary land involved in cattle ranching. So I just made kind of a goofy video. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I go around and show all the different types of fossil fuels that are required to produce a tub of margarine, because same thing, a lot of people will just go buy a tub of margarine out of the grocery store that says vegan on the side of it and be like, oh, David Suzuki said I'm saving the earth by eating this. Well, that's maybe not quite where it's at, right? But that one got huge views and got shared everywhere, and somebody poached it and posted it on Facebook, and I got like 3.5 million views. And yeah, but I still haven't got the algorithm figured out which ones take off the best and which ones don't. So 1+1 joke, great slides, love your YouTube videos, thank you. Teacher lets us watch your videos in between classes. Well, I hope that they watch the videos before you watch the videos, because some of them people should not be watching at a young age. Well, if everyone's done with me, I just want to say thanks very much for having me, and it's been a pleasure to see all your smiling faces here. Hope to see a lot of you in person someday, and yeah, keep being awesome, keep growing beef.